Saul made this really silly rule, and it was really silly, but people had to follow it. But Saul got his men together, and they went, and they attacked the Philistines. And as the Israelites saw they were attacking, they came out to help attack. And a great victory was given to the Israelites. But by the end of the fighting, all the Philistines were either dead or running away. But it took a very, very, very long time. And by the end of it, the men were all tired and thirsty and covered in blood and so hungry. But Saul had said, nope, nobody eat until we're done. So they started back to where their camp was. And on the way, they passed a tree that had some honey in it, some miel. And it looked so good. But none of the men ate it, because that's what Saul said. But as Jonathan walked past it, he saw the honey, and he went, oh, hey, honey. He took a spear and stuck it on the end of the honey, got some on the end, and went, that's good stuff. And of course, the soldiers were horrified. They said, Jonathan, you're not supposed to eat until we're done. Jonathan must not have been there when Saul had said that. He did say he didn't know. But Jonathan said, they said, you're not supposed to eat until we're done. That's what Saul said. Jonathan said, it was a silly rule. It was a silly rule. We would have all been much better off if we'd been allowed to eat before we were done. We would have fought even better. But the rest of everybody else waited until they got back to camp. And as soon as they got to camp, they saw the animals that they had brought with them to eat, and they couldn't wait. They jumped on those animals. They killed them right there. And they were so hungry, they didn't even wait to cook them. They didn't even wait to drain the blood out of them. They just started eating them raw, like animals. And of course, Saul was horrified when he saw this. He said, what's the matter with you? That's not the way you're supposed to eat that. God told us not to eat food like that. God's already angry at us. You want to get even angry with us? Stop what you're doing. Cook those animals properly. Then you can eat. And so they stopped. They cooked the animals, then they ate them. And then Saul said, well, what do we do now? And he turned to Ahiah, the high priest. And he said, what does God want us to do now? And Ahiah said, well, let me ask God. And Ahiah prayed to God. You know what God said? Nothing. God said nothing. Because God wasn't on Saul's side anymore, remember? But Saul said, well, it can't be because of something I've done. Somebody else must have done something wrong. He said, who else did something wrong? Who else did something wrong? I'll find out, and that person will die, even if it's my own son. You know where this is going, right? Yep. When it turned out that Jonathan had eaten honey, he had to stand up and say, I ate the honey. He didn't know it was wrong. He didn't know that Saul had said, don't eat the honey. But he said, I did what was wrong. I guess I have to die. Now, what should Saul have said there? He should have said, that was wrong of me to say. Right? He should have said, look, can we work something else out? He should have said, I don't want to have to kill my son over eating some honey. You know what he said instead? Oh, yes, because Jonathan ate that honey, he has to die. Yeah, I know, right? And he would have killed Jonathan right there. But the other soldiers stood firm and said, don't you dare kill him. He's the only reason that we're still living right now. He's the only one that was following God. Don't you dare kill him. And Saul went, fine. Well, fine. I won't kill my son. I won't kill my son. Nice guy, huh? Yeah. He said, you know what? I'm tired of fighting. It's no fun anymore. Let's all go home. Yeah, he went home like a spoiled little child who got his ball taken away. For the rest of the time that Saul was king, he fought with the Philistines. And you know where he got more soldiers? He would go around to other cities in Israel. And everywhere he saw young, strong men, he would say, you have to be part of my army. This is exactly what God said would happen with the king. He said, if you ask for a king, I'll give him to you, but that king will take your sons away and make him fight in your army. And the people said, we don't care, we want a king. Well, now they have a king. And Saul is going around finding the people and making them fight in his army. They got just what they wanted, but they also got what they didn't want. Okay. Saul started out good, but he's not turning into a very good king, is he? No, he's not. All right, we're going to have to come back to Saul later to find out what happens to him. All right, so that's the end of our story. It was long and kind of complicated, but tell me, what can we learn from it? Well, I say we can learn that sometimes when people get put in charge of things, they forget why they got put in charge. Saul was given great power in his country. He was made king. And what happened? What happened? He forgot God. He forgot God. He started doing things his own way. And because of that, he almost lost the war, and he almost lost his son. He almost killed his son. Because it was easier, for as far as he was concerned, it was better to do that than say that he was wrong. And then to ask for forgiveness. Guys, we all do what's wrong sometimes. And when it happens, we have two choices. We can say, God, I'm sorry, I did what was wrong. Or we can say, I'm not wrong, everybody else is wrong. And keep on doing what we've been doing. That's what Saul did. And now he's lost the kingdom. He's lost the respect of his men. He almost lost his son. Okay. Do you like it when people tell you that you're doing wrong? I don't. I don't like when people tell me I'm doing wrong. But that doesn't matter because we need to know when we're doing wrong, right? And when people tell us when we're doing what's wrong, we can either say, don't tell me what to do, or we can say, you're right, I did what was wrong, and try to make it right. Okay? That's what Saul was supposed to do, and he didn't. And now he's starting to lose things. We have to see tomorrow what happens to him. All right. Our verse for this week is about the things that we're supposed to be doing, the things we're supposed to do to make God happy with us, and the things we're supposed to do to make other people happy with us. And that verse is Ephesians 4:32. And be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God for Christ's sake hath forgiven you. Be kind to each other. Saul wasn't kind to his men. He wasn't kind to his son. Tender-hearted, forgiving one another. He wasn't forgiving of his son. Even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. The same way that God forgave us, we need to forgive other people. Let's say that one more time. Ephesians 4:32, and be ye kind one to another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God, for Christ's sake, hath forgiven you. Ephesians 4:32. In Spanish, Efesios 4:32. Antes ser benignos unos con otros, misericordiosos, perdonándoos unos a otros, como Dios también os perdonó a vosotros en Cristo. All right. Come back tomorrow to find out what happens to Saul next. But for now, let's stop and go on to our mathematicas.